The word freedom for me is very important. It's freedom to try cases, or it's freedom to take up golf, or it's freedom to be with your kids, or it's freedom to travel the world. Freedom equates to happiness for me.
Did you feel like you had something to prove?
So if you wanted me to get really vulnerable.
Welcome to the Tip the Scales podcast, where we discuss running and growing your law firm. I'm your host, Maria Monroy, president and co-founder of LawRank. Today, I am joined by Mike Morse. He's actually sitting here with me. What did we really talk about, Mike?
We talked about an exciting verdict I had last week in Detroit. We obtained a $75 million verdict for the death of a 21-year-old college student.
Who tried the case at your firm?
I tried the case along with Chris Filiatro, was my second chair.
Wait, you were first chair? But aren't you like a billboard lawyer?
I am a billboard lawyer.
You are?
And a TV commercial lawyer. And the jury didn't seem to mind.
Wow. I'm really excited for you, and I hope that this motivates other lawyers that are more focused on running their firm to try cases if that's what they want to do. Michael Morse.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
This is like the earliest I've ever recorded a podcast. I left the gym early. I'm still half in gym clothes because I was afraid you wouldn't do it later. And I'm like, okay, you want to do it now? We'll do it now.
Let's do it. Let's just do it. Come on.
Let's just do it.
You got it.
So, funny story. Go to the gym. I walk into like the stretching room, which is just empty, and there's someone on the phone, and they're talking about you.
Positive,
I
hope?
They were talking about your big verdict.
Today.
Yeah, today.
Okay.
I won't say who it is, but
I guess it's newsworthy.
I think so.
Especially coming from a guy like me.
Yeah.
Who hasn't tried a case in a couple minutes.
So how long had it been since you had tried a case?
I haven't really figured it out, but it's been since before COVID and maybe even a couple years before that.
Okay. And what made you decide to do this? Because I feel like it's very common for trial lawyers to become volume firms at some point. Actually, not very common, but it's common. You see that like shift, but then they don't go backwards.
Right. I was talking to David Gruber last night. He used to be a huge trial lawyer, hasn't tried a case in 15 years. And I said, David, you got to get back in there. It doesn't make a ton of sense because, after I practice what I preach. You delegate, you don't do stuff that others can do for you that you don't love and aren't great at. Now, I always did love trial work and I was pretty great at it, but it's just not the best use of your time. The judges make you wait. There's a ton of preparation. And so what happened was, as I was growing my business, I started hiring really good trial lawyers like Chris Filiatro, who presented yesterday, Louis Melfi, who's on the stage right now, Jake Yater. These guys are as good as me, if not better. Most lawyers, especially who build a firm, we have over 200 employees. We spend a lot of money on marketing, get complacent. And I was complacent. That was me. And this case walked in my door. I met with the family. I thought it was one of the worst stories I had ever heard. I didn't know if there was recovery. I didn't, if there was money, what the policies were. I knew nothing, but I knew I had to help this family. There was just a gut feeling.
Okay, wait, before we get there, hold on. I'm like, something's still irking me. I had no idea you tried cases in the past.
Dozens and dozens and dozens of injury cases, but they were all
like good, like big verdicts, like 7 or 8?
Nope, soft tissue.
Okay.
$20,000, $100,000, $300,000, $600,000 verdicts. I've never had a verdict in the multi-millions before.
Okay.
This case.
Okay.
And I did that out of necessity. There was a run in the...
You didn't love it?
There was a period I loved it.
Okay.
There was a period of time when I won 10 in a row, which in my town was hard. There was mostly soft tissue, right? There's a 100 policy. They're offering you $2,500. I'm like, screw you. I'm going to try this case. And I remember getting a $250,000 verdict with a 50 policy or 20. And they would pay they'd pay when they put their people at risk. But I liked it. I was good at it, but it wasn't efficient. And I was trying to grow. So I had to delegate the trial work. I still oversaw it. I still was involved. I was still mentoring. I was doing seminars. And then, I had people at my firm who loved it. And that was their job, right? I have people at my firm that their only job is to try cases. So it's been a minute.
Because don't you teach firms via Fireproof, like an EOS, to do all this that you're saying? Like, go delegate. Like, you need to stop trying cases and focus on your business. Somebody needs to manage the business.
I don't tell people what I do is I help people find their sweet spot.
Like what they love.
Yes. And what they're great at. I have a lawyer, I'm talking to them this morning, who wants to be a trial lawyer. and he wants to try cases and grow his firm. That's fine, but he also can't be on the business side of it. He needs to focus on the trials, and he needs to hire people to run the business and grow. So I am violating my rule because I am still working on my business. I'm growing my business. I wanted to try it for lots of reasons.
Okay, but why? So what, like, before this case walked in the door, did you have an itch? Like, I need to do something different, like...
Not a big itch. Not a big itch.
So it was the case itself
It was the case itself.
So tell us about the case.
A young man, 21 years old, in college, had an exam the next day, and he went to his friend's house. Friend he's known for 4 years, and he walked in, he says, I'm tired. I got to stay up and study. Can I have an Adderall? Buddy says, I don't have an Adderall. Another guy who was at the house said, oh, here, take this. This will help you study. He takes it. He's known this guy for about a year. And it turns out it was MDMA or Molly. And he starts feeling the effects of Molly. And he starts Googling, he starts Googling, what are the side effects of Adderall? Because he thought he took Adderall and he was feeling weird and not good, obviously. And he gave him a very high dose. Apparently, he kept giving him more and more without weighing it out. The idiot who gave him the Molly starts videotaping him and putting it on Snapchat as a joke. He's laughing. He's pouring water on him. And it also turns out he's a drug dealer. So while he's putting this out on Snapchat, people are saying, what is that guy on? And he responds, Molly and methylene. And people were buying drugs from him. People were videotaping the snaps and sending it to the police because it was so horrific. So we have about 3.5 minutes of video, horrific video with filters saying, basically this is, game over.
The fuck?
They never called the police. They never called 911. He dies on the floor in this nice home in a nice suburb of Detroit. 6 hours later, they call the police. Long dead. No apology, no accountability, no responsibility taken. Parents are beyond devastated. Only child, only son, Albanian family, really nice family. And the police, get involved. Prosecutor's office gets involved for lots of things that aren't interesting for you and this audience. They drop the case. Don't really know why. So then the family looks at us. So when we signed it up, there was a criminal investigation going on. We're just the civil lawyers. Then the criminal case gets dropped and they're looking at me for justice, like real justice. And I'm like, okay, but I can get you a verdict, but the kid's still going to be out. And they're like, we just need someone to hold this guy responsible. I've never had a case like this in 32 years of being a lawyer. I said, okay, I'm going to personally help you. I'm going to personally try it. I could have easily given it to others in my office. I felt compelled. I wonder, am I going to be effective, extra effective because my community now knows me. Okay. They know what's in my heart. They know my family. They know my mom. They know my dog. They know what I do for the community. We've given out over the last 10 years, 320,000 backpacks. We got a man out of prison who was serving a life sentence that for a crime he didn't commit. I got him out. We do adoption events twice a year. Like, my community knows who I am. They know what's in my heart. And I said, is this going to be effective at trial and maybe give me an edge, or is it going to hurt me at trial? You can't answer that question. You had no idea. I had to test that during jury selection because I didn't want to be a distraction. So I asked them, who knows me? All hands went up. Am I going to be a distraction here? Are you going to take it out on my clients that I am who I am, right? I'm Mike Morse. I'm on the billboards. I'm on the TV commercials. They all said no. They won't take it out on me. And, I went through the full jury instructions telling them that we were seeking a big number for justice. Does anybody have a cap on what you can award this nice family? There were some funny answers. What is he, Elon Musk? You want all that money? And we dealt with that. My kid was 21 when he died. Elon Musk was 30 when he made his first million. There was so much really great stuff here that I learned. I hired a coach to get the rust off We did a focus group. Like
Did you do big data?
did not do big data.
Okay.
I'm just learning about big data. We've never done that in my firm.
Okay.
I have 2 friends in Detroit who've used big data, and the results were tremendous.
Yeah.
We've never done it. So we actually have a presentation coming up. Somebody's showing us some
Who?
big. Well, one of the lawyers.
Okay.
So we could talk about that. I don't know
Yeah.
much about it,
Okay.
except that it's very predictive and accurate.
I had John Campbell on. You should listen to the episode.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Cutting edge.
And
for
this
the right
would have been
case.
interesting to see what people would have. I mean, you had great results. So
I went in a little naive. I didn't do research on like death verdicts, wrongful death verdicts in my state. I didn't do that. I had $100 million number in my brain. My jury consultant, like, Mike, ask for 50. I asked for 200. I got a little crazy.
see, that's where big data would have been great to know what the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's really cool about it. What I find fascinating is like, what would happen if you asked for 200 versus 50 versus 100, and which one gets you more, right? Like,
Right.
That's what I think is cool about it.
Yeah. So I'm going to learn about that and use it on the right cases.
So are you planning on continuing to try cases now?
So today is Tuesday. The jury came back last Thursday.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it much. I mean, I'm still kind of in this whirlwind fog. I think it's going to help my firm settle cases for bigger dollars.
That's really cool.
I think I will probably try the right cases. We have last night at the bar, one of my lawyers was telling me about this massive death case. A US ICE truck killed my client. We have evidence that they were, the guy had 5 prior accidents. He's on the road because they need drivers, bad acts. And so, like, why not? If they're not going to pay top dollar for this family, then maybe I will come in and try another case. It was a lot of work, Maria. It was a lot of work.
I heard.
It was 12-hour days. I didn't eat much. I lost weight that I don't have to lose. It was stressful. I was nervous.
So how involved were you? Because it wasn't just you, it was you and your team, right?
In which part? The trial or in the workup of the trial?
Everything.
Workup of the trial, very little.
Okay.
I have a team who did the deps, who did the pleadings. 5.5 years. I didn't do anything in court.
Right.
So I kind of swooped in 2 weeks before trial, and I said, "Get me ready." You can think about the emails that came at me. My coach, my jury consultant came in. We started practicing jury selection. We started writing the opening. I hadn't written one in many years, and I practiced. I brought in secretaries and paralegals in my conference room, and I did a jury selection on them. And I went around the room, and they said crazy answers, and I dealt with them. So I practiced.
Were you nervous?
Yes, I was nervous, very nervous. Butterflies. I was up late. The more I prepare, the less nervous I get, right? The more I prepare, the better I'm at everything. So, but I didn't prepare. One of my buddies in town who just got a nice $30 million verdict, Jason Wechter, who's a great trial attorney, said, "Michael, you should have started this 6 months ago, practicing." And I'm like, yeah, I probably should have. But the judge kept moving the trial, and I didn't know when it was really going. And finally, they're like, "I think it's going." I'm like, okay, it's time to get ready. And I'm a quick study. I'm pretty smart. I've tried a bunch of cases. It did come back. It did come back like riding a bike, but I've never asked for, I don't know if I've ever asked for over $1 million in a trial. So this is a leap.
This was a big jump.
But I'll tell you, my confidence level is up now. Like I'm confident in my legal abilities. I'm confident as who I am as a man, in my community. And once the jury, was friendly, it felt friendly. I'm like, okay, let's just, what do we got to lose? I mean, this family needs justice. I focused 75% of the trial on the damages aspect. I think back in the day when I used to try cases, I would spend 75% on liability because I was afraid to talk about money. I was afraid to talk about damages. But I had some weird confidence in me that that's what all this case is about the trauma that this family went through. Nobody's taking accountability. We need a piece of paper with a big number on it for justice. Even if it's symbolic justice, even if this family isn't going to get $75 million, that piece of paper is their justice. And they heard me. They gave it. I turned around and saw my family sobbing. I said yesterday on the stage, it was like they texted me the next morning, 8:30, said, this is the first time in 5.5 years since Dennis died, that we slept through the night. I got chills just saying that story to you. That's justice. That's what they wanted. It's not about anything else. Somebody finally said, those 8 jurors, unanimously, all 8 of them said, you're responsible. You killed our son, and our son mattered. And it mattered to the tune of $75 million, which is multiple times the largest verdict in Michigan history for a single death. Didn't know that part, but like they resoundingly said, Denis matters. And that's what the family needed. It was that closure. And I've talked to him every day since, and it's still sticking. Like they can like maybe move on a little bit. And I think as trial lawyers, usually I've never felt this way. I mean, this was as big as any, we get lots of cases, 5 million, 10 million. The money is fine. It's nice. The family needs it, likes it. But this was different. It was, you hear all the trial lawyers today talking about justice. I've heard that word for 32 years. It's a great word. This was I don't want to say the first time, but this was like a really, really good time that I felt the justice system work for this family. And it's just an amazing feeling.
So I've interviewed you before. And last time I interviewed you, you didn't have this energy.
Maybe I was hungover.
That very well could have been it. But you do seem like very excited and passionate about this. I think that's like really neat, especially for someone that clearly had already, for like on paper, like you had made it, right? Like there was like no one was going to dispute that you are fine for the rest of your life financially, that you run this. I mean, you have one of the largest firms, right? Am I crazy?
No, in the country. That's what I'm told.
That's okay. So that, and not only that, but then you have Fireproof and you help so many other firms. So like in terms of fulfillment, you already had it in so many different ways, right? But this, to me, the energy that I get from you is that this felt really different.
It does. And I can't really explain it. I mean, you're right. I didn't have to do this. I could have had those 2 weeks to just golf and spend with my kids and not work so hard. And I thought about that. I'm like, there was times in those 2 weeks, I'm like, why am I doing this? Just to be truthful, right? I mean, I had some doubt. I wanted to do a good job. I didn't know if I could do a good job. I didn't know, because I definitely was rusty. And why? And you asked that earlier, and it's not that easy to say, because I was complacent. I have a great life. I travel a ton. I have great friends. We are helping, I think, 60 law firms grow and scale, and that's great, those relationships. But, like I mentioned, the innocent man we got out of prison last year, this case, like maybe I'm looking for more meaning in my life.
I think
you are. And so I will continue to look for opportunities to make a difference in my community, in the country. This verdict may open other doors to help people. And, like when I gave my talk yesterday in front of 350 trial lawyers, I encouraged them all to take a case that wasn't going to move their needle financially, but it was going to move their needle in their heart and in the minds of their community, and to show who we really are as trial lawyers. Now, I've heard that talk many times in my life. We all have. It's a little cliche.
Yeah.
But this was like, Maria, every state has rules for pro bono work. Every rule, to do stuff for your community, nobody does it. My firm didn't do it much until we started about 6, 7, 8 years ago in earnest. But most people don't do it. It truly feels good. And it does make a difference. And it makes a difference, first and foremost, in my heart, for my clients. And you want to help people. Every lawyer here wants to help as many people as they can. The community sees this stuff. The community hears this stuff, right? We did a press conference the day after the verdict, because my clients want to get the word out about the verdict, and they want to get the word out to the college kids going back to campuses. Don't take drugs from strangers. Don't ask for an Adderall if you don't know who it is, if you're not seeing it come out of the pill bottle. there are bad kids who are going to do bad stuff to our children. When I heard this case, I went home and I cried with my kids and I told them the story and they were mortified by it. And hopefully I scared the shit out of them so they won't do this stuff. This verdict hopefully will save lives. And that sounds cliche coming out of my mouth, but maybe it will. Parents are going to hear this. People in that audience are going to hear it. Go back.
I'm scared. I'm like about to cry.
I cried throughout this trial. I was asking questions. I remember why are we doing this here? I was asking a question of the dad, Jamie Tom. I couldn't get it out. I had to stop. I got choked up. Jury's to my left. I'm like, okay, am I going to cry in front of this jury? It was real. I did not sob in front of the jury, but they heard me choke up. I choked up several times. And they felt my emotion. But it was true. Like, and I don't think back in the day when I was trying cases on a soft tissue, whatever. It's hard to have that kind of emotion. I mean, you have to get your passion up. You have to like your client and put their best case forward. But this was not hard to feel. And I every time I talk about kids and my kids, it's emotional. And if somebody goes back and talks to their kids and it makes them not have a stupid choice. I mean, I'll ask somebody for a Flexeril or I've tried Adderall. I didn't have a prescription. I admitted that to the jury. I told the jury that during jury selection. I'm that guy. I've done it. And I didn't know this. I didn't even think that somebody could give you something that's not the thing you're asking for. I think stories like this can make our country better, can make my community better. And I think I will look for cases like this and where I can help, where I can make a difference.
I love it. And when my kids are older, I'm literally going to have you FaceTime them.
Fine.
I'm dead serious. And you're going to tell them about this case.
I'll scare the pants out of them.
Thank you. I'm really going to appreciate that because my son is turning 12 this year. So it's like not
getting
too far.
close.
Yeah, it's getting close. And I'm not kidding.
Okay, fine.
Cool.
You got my number. You got my cell.
I know. Yes. Okay. So, but I want to hear a little bit more about the case and excuse my ignorance. All of you know I'm not a lawyer, but I assume this kid had to be there at trial.
Yes.
What was that like?
Awkward. There was 3 defendants. There was 2 other kids. I keep calling them kids. They were 21-year-old adults. One was a homeowner, and 2 of the idiots were giving him the drugs and laughing in the background. They sat on the same bench as the parents behind the counsel table. It was awkward. And I told my clients, this is going to be awkward. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to look at them. Don't yell at them. Don't trip them. But they're going to be in the courtroom. Now, I kind of expected their parents to be there. They didn't bring friends. They didn't bring parents.
They didn't bring parents?
No, their parents hired good lawyers, good defense attorneys to defend them.
But they didn't show up.
The parents did not show up. The kids showed up.
But you don't think that's weird that the parents didn't show up?
I was wondering where they were. And I can only guess where they were, but they raised kids like this.
But then it kind of shows because why aren't you there?
Yeah. And these boys pled the Fifth Amendment throughout the trial, which was my first time. We asked them, one of the better arguments I came up with, and it's not a tricky argument. Like, there was 4 people in the house that night. Okay, 1 died, and the other 3 are in the courtroom, and we still don't know what happened because they're not talking. They could give this family relief right now. They could apologize to this family right now. They could say why they didn't call 911 right now, and none of them did. So this jury, you can't use the word punish, but the jury had to punish them, had to find them responsible. We couldn't say certain words, but we implied punish them, hold them responsible, make a statement, let the world know. You can't say any of those words, but you got to paint pictures, and you got to let them know that this family needs you to do justice. And my final words to the jury in my rebuttal was something like, I've carried the burden of this family for 5.5 years on my shoulders. And it's time for me to take it off my shoulders and give it to you 8 people to carry this torch to the end. And the family thanks you and I thank you. And in 3 hours, it was a long jury verdict for them because there was a lot of counts and a lot of things. And they came back with what they came back with.
$75 million?
Yep.
Were you able to collect on any of that?
So the day before trial, the homeowner's policy, it's not confidential. We wouldn't do it confidential. Paid $1.1 million.
Okay.
State Farm. Not sorry to say that. I don't like State Farm. So that was unexpected. And there were some, we didn't take the case for that, but you know what? Paid some bills, got to set up a foundation. They're going to get over $700,000 to set up a foundation in Denis's name, which is beautiful. So they're super excited about that, to bring awareness.
Right.
And live like Denis and laugh like Denis and love like Denis. They have sayings for him. Sadly, I never got to meet him. Saw lots of pictures and videos and things. So that was a massive win because we would have collected because we got the verdict. But having a little safe money in the bank is not bad. And I don't know if this is true what I'm about to say, but most lawyers would have probably taken that money and shut down the case at that point, right? Because the collectability of the other 2 defendants are low. But we have a $75 million verdict around the bad actor's neck for the rest of his life. It's not dischargeable in bankruptcy, in my opinion. And he is going to remember that. And if he ever grows up, gets a job, wins the lottery, gets an inheritance, we're going to be there to collect.
That was going to be my next question. Like, how does that work? Because can you start taking money out of his paycheck in any way? Like, how does that work?
He's not working. But one day, he's only 25. So one day, maybe. I had this idea. I haven't even floated it by my clients really yet. So it's weird to tell your audience this. But here's an idea for cases like this. Make the kid write a check to their foundation every month. Not an electronic transfer, but handwrite a check for $100 a month. Maybe it goes up over time or with inflation or whatever. They have to handwrite an envelope. They have to sign the check. They have to put it in the mailbox every single month to think about Denis. Maybe they write something in the memo line. We can make this all negotiable.
I love it.
And make this kid 12 times a year for the rest of his life think about Denis. To me, it's powerful. And I don't know if they're going to accept that. And maybe, we can renegotiate in 10 years because hopefully the kid gets his life on track. I don't wish him not to, unless he actually gets convicted and they charge him with a crime again. But which they might.
Why? I'm confused as to why, what happened on the criminal side.
So I'm not 100% sure. I know they were charged. I know he spent time in jail and they dismissed the charges. And I was not involved in all that. My other legal team watched it, but we're not prosecutors. Prosecutors get to do whatever they want. I'm being told by the family that prosecutors are still looking into it. And there might be charges. There's no statute of limitations on something like this, I don't think, in Michigan. So the prosecutors dropped it or the judge kicked it. There was some things that the judge kicked. And the family would very much like the prosecutors to charge him again. Whether or not, we have no say in that, right? So I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's out there.
So from my very limited knowledge, from my understanding, these types of cases don't go past, say, 10 million. 75 is absurd for a case of this nature. So how did you motivate the jury to give you so much? I know you asked for 200, but what happened there? Can you expand?
So because I don't have a lot of, I don't know, I've never tried a wrongful death case, to be honest. I've tried lots of cases, but they're mostly just neck and back and shoulder, whatever.
You're going to make everyone think that they can just go try a case and get
try a case.
$5 million.
So I was a little naive. I watched a lot of videos on our friend Dan Ambrose's stuff.
Did you just admit this?
I did.
That's who was talking about you at the gym.
Yeah, he's not sure what to make of me. He's like, who the hell are you coming in and getting a $75 million verdict? You're not Nick Rowley. You're not Brian Panish. You're not Rex Parrish. I'm like, dude, I don't know. I'm
He
not
was speaking highly of you,
okay.
though.
Good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't anything bad. I wouldn't have said it if it was. Not online, at least.
The truth is, he has nice content. So I watched Nick Rowley jury selection. He taught me some stuff. I watched Rex. I watched Brian. All true. And so, like, literally, I'm learning the week before trial. It's a little embarrassing to say. I'm not even sure I want to keep talking.
I love this.
Nobody said what to ask for in a wrongful death case. But I thought, why is this kid's not worth life? Not worth 100 million, 200 million, 300. If it was my kid, there's no money. There's no amount of money. Billions, trillions, gazillions. So I'm like, all right, I want $100 million verdict. How am I going to get there? So I've saw some of these amazing trial lawyers, they'll talk about sports players signing a $240 million contract, or they'll talk about this art sold for $300 million. And I'm like, well, what's the Mona Lisa? The guy Austin Bruce, who's helping me put together my PowerPoint for my closing, put up the Mona Lisa when I said art. My jury consultant says, it's cliche, don't use art. I said, you know what? I'm going to use the art. Anyway, my gut was like, art, everybody understands. So I Googled that morning, what is the Mona Lisa worth? What do you think the Mona Lisa is appraised at?
$1 billion?
840 million. Very, very close. I was shocked by that. My team thought 250. So, and I got to the jury trial. So Dan, you want to hear something funny? I don't want to screw up your cameraman. He said, if I tell this story, I have to stand. But should I stand? Can I stand?
Yeah.
So to the jury, I said something like, ladies and gentlemen, in wrongful death cases like this, I'm not sure why we as Americans undervalue human life. It's just something that happens. We pay sports players hundreds of millions for their contracts. People buy cars that are worth multi-millions of dollars. And even the Mona Lisa that you can see here on the screen is appraised for $840 million. And I want you to imagine that you're standing, that there's a 75-year-old man standing looking at the Mona Lisa in Paris in the Louvre. And I've been lucky enough to see the Mona Lisa. It's actually not very big. But imagine it's almost closing time and there's a man just being mesmerized by the Mona Lisa. And the building immediately gets engulfed in flames. And the Paris fighters are about to run in, and they have about 10 seconds to save either the man or the Mona Lisa. Which one do they save? And I pause and I look around, and they're like waiting for my answer, like they don't know the answer. I'm like, of course they save the man, because human life is way more meaningful than a piece of art. So I'm not sure why Denis's life isn't worth $840 million, but today I'm going to ask you for $100 million for compensatory damages and $100 million for exemplary damages. And then I went on to, I'm taking the burden off of me. I'm giving it to you. I sat down, and within a few hours, they awarded the $75 million. And I think that it put it in perspective.
Yeah. You anchored them.
I anchored it with the 840.
Yeah.
And I got this. I did not. I mean, I read about this. Everybody kind of uses a way, but I told my own story. I ad-libbed a little because I have actually seen the Mona Lisa. I talked about, why don't, I know. And I also said that if the Mona Lisa was in this courtroom, the parents would rather have their son back than the Mona Lisa. I actually said that. If they could take that off the wall and hand it to the parents, they don't want it. They want Denis to walk through the courthouse. And you could talk about, but there is no magic. There is no, I didn't do it in this trial, but I've done, there just isn't magic here. We wish there was magic. We wish we could wave a magic wand and Denis would walk back in the door. But all we have is money justice. That's all we have. That's all our jurisprudence system is built on, is money damages, as crappy as that is. That's all we can do. And this family needs that piece of paper. And you can't think about, Miss Juror Monroy, you can't think about whether or not it's collectible, because there's been no evidence whether or not they can afford to pay. And because there's no evidence, there's a jury instruction, and I showed them the jury instruction that you can't argue, you can't discuss things that weren't in evidence. There was no evidence that they can't afford to pay this. That means if one of you jurors if one of the jurors in the jury room talk about how are they going to pay, and I knew this because of my focus group, because they all said, how are they going to pay $100 million? So I argued very strenuously, you can't talk about it. And if one of you talk about it, somebody else has got to go tell the judge that there's misconduct going on in the jury room. And I was strong about that because I knew that that was going to be the first things out of the mouth. Morse wants $200 million. This is a 25-year-old kid. How are they going to pay it? It doesn't matter. This was about that piece of paper and justice and responsibility. And it just resonated. It makes so much sense to me. I believe it in my bones. I sold it. They believed me because it's truthful, right? Human life is really valuable. And this was really bad shit that they did to him.
Absolutely.
So they punished him.
I have two questions. One, when you were talking about the Mona Lisa versus a 75-year-old man, is there a reason why you gave them that age?
There was a 75-year-old man in the front row of the jury box, and he was staring at me the whole trial, and he was a great, great guy. He's nodding at everything I'm saying.
Okay.
And I wanted to say, even a older man is worth more than the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
More than a 21. I don't know. I said 75.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why it just popped out of my mouth.
And then I have another question.
Yeah.
So as I'm hearing you talk about this trial, it sounds to me like you were like in your element, like you were authentic, you were yourself. And earlier today, you said to me that you feel confident as a man. Like, do you think that played a role? Like, were you this confident 5 years ago?
1,000,000% I was not. And, I'm older. I'm more mature. I don't know if I had this much gray hair last time I tried a case. Back in the day, it's like I had to win or else my life would be over, right? This one, I felt pressure for the family, but I don't know. My perspectives change. Things are different. And I am encouraging others to try more cases and at least, get out of their comfort zone and shake it up. It's only been 5-6 days. My worldview is a little bit different now. I do have more energy. I'm excited. I love, that we're talking about this. Things have shifted. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll try 2-3 a year. Who the heck knows? But if my team thinks I can be valuable and I can help bring justice to our clients, I will be involved more. I liked it. If I can get behind the cause and it's meaningful, why not?
For me, I just keep thinking of, okay, you're super successful, one of the top law firms in the country. You have Fireproof. You've helped so many law firms. Like, I feel like you really, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like you must have been looking for that meaning because financially, like you're set for life, right? And I know we touched on it a little bit already, but can you talk about that? Because like, maybe I'll just ask you like point blank, like, does having money, like that much money at some point, it's like not fulfilling anymore?
Well, I think as a kid till, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, that's what you're chasing. I mean, you're chasing security. You're chasing what you think is happiness. And everybody has a different number in their brain. How many dollars do you need in the bank to be happy and satisfied? And I am very blessed and lucky enough that I hit that number. And I'm still earning. And okay, then you're like, okay, now what? And I think I watch actors in Hollywood, this happens to them, right? They get to the top of the game and then they start going off on tangents and meditation retreats, and Jim Carrey retires after he makes all his money. I don't want to retire. I travel a lot. I love spending time with my daughters. But I also love the freedom. I wrote out, it wasn't a vision board, but I remember I did an exercise in one of the multiple wellness retreats that I've done. In one of the books I've read, was like gave in exercises like what's going to make you happy? It was being able to wake up in the morning and deciding then what I wanted to do for that day, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. Did I want to go to the office? Did I want to go on a trip? Did I want to go on a hike? Did I want to fly somewhere and see some friends and connect? Because for me, connection is everything. I want to connect with people. first and foremost. And that is true freedom. So, there's lots of talk around the legal industry about selling law firms and all that stuff. And we don't have time to get into that, but it's like, so, okay, let's say somebody gives you $100 million, $200, $300 million for your law firm. Okay, then what? But
is that how you felt? Like, now what?
I feel that every morning. And that's to me is true happiness and freedom. The money for me bought freedom. I'm not chomping at the bit to sell my law firm by any stretch of the imagination. I have 220 amazing people. They're my family. I love it. I love my clients. We're only going up in my market. Like, it's fabulous. But the freedom to wake up in the morning and say, what do I want to do today, is an amazing thing for me.
And this is what you wanted to do, this trial, help this family get justice.
And the beautiful thing is I had freedom to say, I'm trying this case, guys, step aside, help me, my team at the office. And they're like, go for it, Mike. And my firm was so supportive. The day after the verdict, Maria, we went in, 200 of my employees were wearing, our law firm t-shirts, Mike won for me, or, cute red shirts. The love, the support, the admiration, the shock that people's like, oh, Mike's got a future in the law, or funny comments like that. But anyway, the word freedom for me is very important, and it's like, that's what my goal was. And when I teach Fireproof and I teach about how to delegate, it's freedom to try cases, or it's freedom to take up golf, or it's freedom to be with your kids, or it's freedom to travel the world. Freedom equates to happiness for me.
Now, did you feel like you had something to prove to like the trial community?
That's a good question. So if you wanted me to get really vulnerable.
I do.
Over the last 15 years, I've definitely been more of a CEO type, managing my law firm, growing my law firm, than in the courtroom and doing depositions 50 hours a week. Definitely changed. First 15 years of my practice, I was doing 20 depositions a week, trying lots of cases, hiring everybody, firing everybody, the whole thing. And so I would hear snippets from people. It felt a little disrespectful that I was no longer a trial lawyer and I'm a businessman. Now, I always said, that's a badge of honor, and screw them and F them. And did it hurt a little bit? Maybe a little bit. Okay. And somebody and I were talking after this trial, and was there a little redemption? Was there a little, I'm not, how could there not be? Right? It had been a lot of years. And, my community was texting friends of mine, my jury consultant, like, is Morse really trying a wrongful death case? And
I mean, that was my first thought, like complete honesty.
But that's okay. I see it. I see exactly what I did. I wrote a book on it. I lecture, I coach, and that's okay. So did it hurt my feelings a little bit? Yes. Did I have something to prove? I don't know. That didn't come into the equation, but maybe subliminally, did I still have it? Can I still do this? Can I be effective? And the answer was a resounding yes.
Well, and not only that, it's not like you were a trial lawyer that was getting like 8-figure verdicts and then you took a 5-year break and then came back. This was like you went from like 0 to 100. Like it was like, I mean, people are like in shock.
People are in shock. And probably, a lot of my competitors aren't happy. And I didn't get a lot of text messages from a lot of trial lawyers around this country or in my community thanking me. Good friends, of course, did. Jen did, and others.
Jen texts me like the moment it happened. She's like, Maria,
so,
oh my God.
So there are good people out there who want success for everybody. And then there's jealous, envious shitheads out there who don't want success for others.
Yeah, we don't care for those people.
And let those people live that way.
Agreed.
Tight. Right? I only want to lift people up.
Well, you should be a fucking motivation to people, to every single lawyer that has been kind of called like, oh, you're a big advertiser, an ambulance chaser, billboard, whatever the hell. It's like, well, no, like if Mike Morse did it, why can't you?
And Maria, does a $75 million verdict for a single death help every other wrongful death case in this country?
Absolutely.
They could take my articles, show it to any insurance adjuster across this country, and say, if Morse can do this in Detroit, we can do this in Texas, California, wherever. It helps everybody. So we should all be excited about big verdicts. I am. When I hear about a big verdict, I'm like, holy cow, that's amazing. And if I know the person, I'll text them, I'll email them. I try to be supportive.
But a lot of people are super happy for you. And I mean, I've seen it here at the conference. Everyone's coming up to you, congratulating you. People are excited. This has created a buzz. Like whoever's not excited about it, I mean, that's their own issues. That speaks about them, not about you. Right?
Agree. Everybody's been so loving at this conference. It's amazing. The attention, the energy, the excitement, the questions. And there's so many layers of messages here, and there's so much to talk about, right?
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's an exciting chapter in my life. I don't know what, the good thing is I'm going to wake up tomorrow and say, what do I want to do today?
Yeah.
What time do I want to go home tomorrow? I don't know. What am I going to do next? I love that sense of adventure, the sense of unknown, the sense of, like, let's see what the rest of the year brings. I could have a new project next week, a new project next year. I don't know. That's what lights me up is just not knowing. I woke up this morning, not knowing how I was going to feel. I'm like, oh, I feel good. Let's go do a Barry's boot camp. I looked online. I did it. Not planned. I don't love a lot of plans. People text, what are you doing for dinner? When you're in Chicago? I have no idea. We'll see where the night takes me. That's just how my life is. And it's always good. It's always flows. That's
the word I was thinking of, flow.
It always ends up where I need to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
I know I bugged you a lot to get this done.
This felt good. This is my first, real in-depth discussion about the jury trial. So I appreciate you being curious and wanting to hear about it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much to Mike for everything he shared with us today. If you found this story valuable, please share it with someone you want to see succeed. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to help others discover the show.